Mr. Rodriguez, thanks for coming in on time. I apologize for being late. I was coming back from CMO. But I wanted to pull up your data from CA1 and do a walkthrough of your highs and lows, why you think you scored high, why you think you scored low, and action steps moving forward.
Okay.
Make sense? Right, so before we begin, how do you feel so far up to this point after quarter one on your overall teaching at this point and your kids' performance?
I feel good, especially once we've moved on from like just solving pure equations, getting into actual algebra and what's going to be tested. The kids have been doing really good on their exit tickets, so I'm really excited to see how they're going to do on their unit tests. So I feel good about it.
Good, good. So let's go straight to your data.
Okay.
So let's talk about some of your glows from data, the high points. What went well on this last CA?
Just knowing that the questions that we did work on, like that we spiraled in a lot in the do now, those are the questions that they did the best at. They did the best in, and so I know, like from here on out, like as long as I work them through the do nows over and over and over again, they'll understand it and they'll get it correct each time they see it.
What specific SEs or skills were those?
I think it was A1E, A4B, and A4B was like, I think that was solving equations. I don't have the TEKS with me right now.
A1E, A4B.
A4B, and they did fairly well in 3A and 7B.
Okay. So this is campus average here? Okay. Okay.
Yes, these two.
So you outperformed above average in every area?
I think one they didn't. Let's see. The A6G.
7.
And
Okay.
then 7A barely by 1 point.
Okay.
And the A6G was, I think, one that I hadn't taught. Yeah, direct variation, I hadn't taught that. There was a lot of proportion questions, and that's going to be taught at the end of this next unit coming up.
So, all right. Now looking at your SEs that they didn't do so well on, that you need to either review, reteach, trial back in, what are those SEs?
4A was like literal equations. We had just covered that, and the way that they tested on CA, it was a minor step that they got confused.
Okay.
And so now they know, like they know what the answer choices will be able to, what answer choices look like.
Right.
Even though they know how to do the steps, it was just the answer choices
Okay.
that threw them off. So that was a quick like do now reteach.
You already covered that?
And then direct variation again, A6G was the lowest, and that is because we haven't covered it, but that's going to be covered in Unit 4, which is coming up.
Which one is that one? Which TEK was that?
A6G. And then I have 2 more. A7A, it was the word problems. And so I'm going to start incorporating like 1 word problem a day. I'm also going to create a lesson over word problems and just understanding how a word problem is translated into an equation and what each piece of that equation represents in the word problem. So I'm going to spend a whole day so they can understand linear functions better.
So you're going to basically take 1 problem a day, it's a word problem a day, in their do now, or is it X ticket, and you're going to work it in?
No, it's going to be like right after the do now, like problem of the day.
Like a problem a day? Okay. And then you're going to have 1 lesson focused on, is it creating equations from word problems?
And vice versa.
Okay.
So just understanding
All right.
the keywords.
Do you have a resource for that yet? You have to make it up.
I'm going to make it up.
Okay. We have some things on campus you can use. You have to make everything. They already have problems and samples you can use.
Yeah, I'm going to pull the like problems from different resources that I have, but the format of the lesson, like there's not a lesson really out there that shows each piece of an equation.
How aligned is SE to this SE to the 8th grade problem, where you have to write equations from words and tables? Is it very different, or is it similar?
To 8th grade?
In 8th grade, there's an SE, I think it's 4 point something, where you have to, it says, basically represent quantities or relationships using equations, word problems, graphs, or tables. You take a word problem and then create an equation. Is it similar to that?
I think so.
Okay. Because you could use some of the 8th grade if it's aligned or not. Okay. And then, so that was 8.6G, 8.7A, word problems. And what was the other one?
A3B. This is creating equations from a table.
Okay.
And so I wasn't going to cover that till slope lesson came along. But that was like one question.
Yep.
And so they did pretty bad on it.
That was one question? All right. Do you know how many questions they test on the STAR, on the EOC?
3, I don't know.
Do you have any idea? Do you estimate? Don't know? Okay, so,
But I know it's not that many. There's very little slope questions from, like, calculating slope.
I'll get it for you.
I'm going to call numbers. I found something. Is first grade ready? Oh, awesome. All right. Yes, I think, well, let's see. Is first grade ready?
We're ready.
I can think of the question, and
So we want to take the Kilgo binder,
it was 2014.
and we want to find a number of questions for each, for that SC specifically,
Yeah.
because it's the only testing one question.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was one question that they did from like this type of question that was on CA. It was just one question that was like that on the STAR, which was slope from a table. I think it's 3B. So 3B. So the CA doesn't even align to the STAR
Okay.
because it's not 3B. 3B here is patterns.
Is that a A3B?
A3B.
Okay, and,
This is A3B too, and it doesn't align.
okay.
The one that it's supposed to align to, though, I know it. It's actually. Let's see. This one right here. So they have to create a slope. They have to find the rate of change that matches the equation.
Okay.
So it's somewhat. They have to know that this 5/8 is the slope in the table. They have to be able to
Figure out the
find
slope.
the slope.
Rise over run.
So this is the only type of question that was kind of like that question that was on CA, but again, it doesn't even align to the right.
Okay, so was the question even aligned? Was it aligned to this, or just kind of aligned to it?
The CA question?
Yeah.
The CA question was, they actually give you the table and you have to find the slope.
Okay.
And so this one's a
So
little bit
based
more
on the
rigorous.
past assessments, how many questions do we have covering this SE?
The real 3D?
Yes.
Or,
Oh, this one right here. This is what, 6A?
This is 6A, yeah.
How many questions?
Just one.
Just one. All right, so when we go to the blueprint, where the blueprint is, find the blueprint and find out how many questions on the EOC do we have from that question. You can figure that out. From that SE.
Go to the blueprint.
Because what happens is, it's important, it's a very important SE to be able to figure out rise over run. We also want to make sure
Well,
that,
it's more like of a supporting standard because I know the other slope questions are more from word problems, so that's why I think it's more important to cover word problems than the actual skill. Like, yeah, they need to know the skill and they'll understand that, but the CA didn't align to that.
you know what?
I mean, it doesn't even have the right.
Yeah, I understand. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to the blueprint. We're going to figure out, okay, so how many questions, if we can figure out how many questions covering that SC are tested on the EOC. So this is Unit 9, Section 9. And this is going to be one of your guides you want to use. So what you'll do in Section 9, when you look at your assessments, you can kind of proportionally put questions based off the STAR or the EOC. So where's algebra? So What, you know which, is that 1, 2, 3, or 4, you know?
I think it's.
It's in-
It's reporting category 3.
Okay, so in reporting category 3, there's 15 questions, which is over a quarter of the test.
Mm-hmm.
So that means it's a lot. Now let's figure out, we're gonna do some research and try to figure out how many SEs, how many questions assess that SE. Did you have last year's EOC?
Well, this is last year's. This is the start from last year, right?
Yes. But do you have last year's answer choices, which gives you the question and the SE it tested? We can look through that and see how many questions actually did assess that SE. If there was only one,
Okay, I see what you're talking about. I mean, well,
there was only one, wasn't
they
there?
don't
All right,
show
only one. So that means only one question is going to look like that framework. So when you look at if they missed that one question, probably going to get another on the test. Make sure they get it right. Only one. Don't spend too much time on it,
Yeah.
but also know that they're going to have one question on there.
Mhm.
Make sense?
Yeah. That's why I already know. Like last year, I know I spent a lot of time covering just the skill of finding slope
Mhm.
when that wasn't even the issue. It
Right.
was like the main thing was finding slope with dependent over independent.
Mhm,
And if they
mhm.
get that, then they'll answer majority of the
Right,
slope questions.
right, they'll know. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was basically, what do you call that one?
6A.
6A? Okay.
Yeah.
And you already going to reteach that? You're going to do now? What's your plan for that?
That one. Well, that's the 6A.
Uh-huh.
Well, 6A is going to be covered in the next unit when
Okay,
we go
okay.
over slope. So I haven't
Okay.
taught that yet.
Unit 4? No.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
4. Okay. Okay. All right. Was there an SC that, or group of students who just need extra help? Not the entire class, but 2 or 3 students who need extra pulls. Who are those names?
Okay, let's see. 2C, I think this is the situational graphs.
Mm-hmm.
It was Talia, Damien, Diego, Naphtali, Clarissa, and Kennedy.
Damon, Diego, Naftali,
Clarissa
Clarissa,
and Kennedy.
and Kennedy. Okay, so my next question is, what is your plan for them to, because are you going to reteach the whole class or
No,
just do
no,
pull-outs?
that's gonna be a pull-out during intervention,
Okay.
and they're gonna role play like I did with my other intervention,
Mhm.
like to understand the difference between speed and distance.
Mhm.
That way they can make sure they understand what a distance time graph represents.
Okay.
And then another one is the word problem comprehension. So I think that's still gonna be whole class, but I'm gonna keep my eye because on these scholars, they're the ones that like missed every single word problem.
Okay.
And so I'm gonna take these scholars and specifically track their data
Mhm.
and see how well they do it once I cover that word problem lesson day.
Okay.
And so however they do from there, I'm gonna pull them out for intervention if they don't do
All
so.
right. Okay.
But I think because it's a word problem, it's still gonna be like an everyday thing for them.
Because you're going to spiral in
Yeah.
and do nouns, right? Every day. All one day. Very good. I like that's good.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to get a little strategy real quick before we end the data piece. So, word problem of the day. I want you to focus on those strategies like visualization, drawing a picture, having them, plug and chug. So give those students things they can use to figure out, okay, what is the problem? You have the math problem solving strategy, use that. And make sure they use that strategy because that's going to give them a way to attack a problem as opposed to going to the problem and saying, let's do that, have a kind of a game plan.
So I think what I'm gonna do with those, because right now, like, I've been trying to make them understand that everything is multiple representation,
Mhm.
and so I'm gonna tell them for every word problem they see, they need to have at least a table, an equation, ordered pairs,
Mhm.
anything like that. But that all comes from the equation that they need built, so I think that's why
Okay.
it's very important to cover that.
Right. Anything else?
7D,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is the inequalities.
Mm-hmm.
So just forgetting to switch the sign
Okay.
when dividing by negative. That's also
Same students? Or?
those are like 4 students.
Okay.
Which is Marlon,
Uh-huh.
Esmeralda,
Uh-huh.
Taylor, and Diego.
When do you plan to redo?
That's intervention as well. And what I'm gonna do with them is I'm gonna pull them 3 days straight for
Mhm.
intervention, and then quiz them the next, like the 4th day of intervention.
Okay. What's the reason why they forget? Do you know the reason why?
Just forgetting to go back and check.
Okay, I'm gonna give you a little suggestion real quick.
Okay.
Give them a movement. Kids learn by movements. Some students are kinesthetic. Give them a movement when they have inequalities. So it could be, negative. And I'm just making it off the spot. They see a divide by negative. Divide by negative means flip or something, and do a little movement or a dance or a shuffle. And it's funny, but by even me doing that, they're more engaged. They're gonna memorize it. It's gonna make imprint in their brain.
Okay.
So when you do those small group 3-on-4, they may need that little laugh to get them engaged, memorized, so they can. You say divide by negative, they flip or jump, something like that.
Okay.
Make yourself look silly. It's okay. They can laugh. They're laughing with you, not at you. All right, because that is an important skill, because they can do all the work right, and they do that one thing, and the whole problem's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That was it.
That's pretty good though. If only have 4 kids mess up on that. That was it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So have you looked at your scope and sequence and timeline for the next unit coming up?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you can do all these interventions and reteaches and do nows and effectively implement the new content as well? Okay. All right.
Everything else? Fine.
All right. We're going to put this on pause.
Okay.
And now I want you to give me a brief rundown on your new EPAS data and what is your plan to kind of implement some of those skills.
So that is a little struggle for me,
Mhm.
just because a bunch of the TEKs are 8th grade TEKs,
Okay.
6th grade TEKs, and so because algebra isn't very heavy on like computational stuff,
Right.
like I really I don't know what else to do but plug it into the agenda.
Okay.
So like have an EPAS, so like do now, work
Mhm.
on the day, EPAS, and then the lesson, but I'm not sure if that's gonna give me enough time to
Yeah.
stay on track.
Okay. So when you look at the 6th grade, 8th grade TEKs, are they geometry TEKs? Is it a mixture of proportional TEKs or just a mixture of stuff?
It's a mixture of stuff.
Okay, so I want you to do this, okay? And we can do this a later time. We can schedule after we leave here. I want us to think about looking at the last year's data, 8th grade data. We're going to pull the STAR data and see what 8th grade TEKs did well on, because we know the data. Those TEKs, don't spend a lot of time covering. Just do a quick review. Give them maybe a 5-question little pop quiz. They do now question here or there. Those TEKs. Then pull the TEKs that they're going to be on the EPAS that you know they're going to cover, they're going to see. They didn't do well on. And it's not the whole test, it's a few of those TEKs. You take those TEKs and you can embed them in your mini lessons, or embed them in an X ticket, or embed them in a do now quick teach. Or you take those students who, if there was 5 kids who bombed this TEK and the rest did well, and it's going to be an EPAS TEK, then, or an EPAS skill or computation, then during your 9-minute block, you make a little time where you have a differentiated class where these scholars are working on algebra because they already covered this TEK, and then you pull these students to work on that EPAS TEK for about 10 minutes, just those students, and then you give them a little mini assessment at the end. So you have different options. It's going to be tough because in the day, you do it on the EOC.
So what if because usually what happens, the same kids who are struggling with algebra are usually the kids that are struggling with those TEKs. So I would want them to be in independent practice algebra, because if not, then
Well, you pull those same kids too for interventions?
Well, I mean, interventions is a mixture of kids.
Okay.
It's- Exit tickets change all the time, and
Mhm.
I always have different kids who.
So on the E-Pass, there are mostly word problems, right? Or is it a mixture?
It was a mixture. I mean, there was a few things that were like geometry based,
Mhm.
but I think the majority of it was like just that 8th grade math.
Okay. In last year's 8th grade math, scholars about 80% passed the 8th grade test. Now, 80% last year was you had to get like a 45 to pass, so that wasn't, it's not a complete mastery. So I think our next steps would be to make an EPAS plan, looking at the SEs they didn't do well on, and embedding those. We got to be kind of a plan out because you do have algebra to
Do
cover.
I have like okay? Because I know I can't have the actual test,
Mhm.
but is there like any other release test that I can pull from? Like
Let's look into that. Let's check.
because yeah, like I see all these checkpoints and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but I really don't trust the alignment on
Mhm.
them, and I like looking at the questions myself to make sure that I'm
Yep.
teaching it the way it's being tested.
Right. So let's table this. I don't want you to be overwhelmed on trying to do too many things because then you'll get discombobulated and nothing's done well. Focus on the algebra right now, the EOC. That's in the next week and a half. We'll come back and then we'll pull the SE data and then try to find some resources to match up and make a game plan for the EPAS. But I want to make sure, because they take the EOC in May, I want to make sure that's going to be a priority right now because that's going to be their credit. So let's focus on Algebra 1 and then we'll come back and then we'll do a quick planning meeting, pulling the SEs that are weak, and then looking at can we find resources. And I'll ask Maya to have any resources to help with the EPAS, release questions or EPAS-like problems. All right, and okay. So we'll do this. I can pull up my calendar real quick. Today's a what day?
B.
B day. So tomorrow's an AA, then Monday's a B, and Tuesday A, Wednesday B, Thursday A. Okay, so let's set a time for next Thursday in the morning to pull that data, that SE data from 8th grade, and then see what SEs we need to look at, to focus on, and then also in the time being, I'm going to contact Maya and see if they have any questions, release questions, ask Dot as well, and then I recommend you ask the 9th grade teacher at Heights if they have anything, because they had a pretty good plan last year. That's why it's so important that 8th grade math is not blown over, because it affects Explore, Plain,
Yeah.
ACT, SAT.
Yeah.
You don't realize that until you look at the test.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've never seen one, and I wish I had more time to really evaluate it, but can't take it so.
Okay. So I'm going to send you an invite now.
Okay.
I'm also going to invite Dodd if he wants to come as well. All right, so we're gonna wrap up. Before we leave, talk to me about what we discussed so far.
About how I'm gonna reteach the whole group TEKs that were low. And I'm gonna I'm gonna spiral in during do nows, create word problems of the days, and create a lesson to really hit that word problem piece, and so they understand where they can extract the equations from. And then I'm also gonna, with the word problems, I'm gonna create like a word problem, what do you call it? Like
Strategy?
strategy.
It's already
yeah.
done for you though, because
Right,
if you want to use the one
right.
that the team created, choose that one.
Okay. And then for EPAs, I'm going to hold off on that till next week, and we're gonna revisit that and look at resources that we can find that show alignment with the questions, and I think that's it, right?
Good. Yep. All right, let's have a good quarter two. Thank you.